Hi everyone. So welcome back to Loading Architects Learning. So welcome back if you've listened to our previous episode. So this is a podcast hosted by myself, Adeline, and my friend here, Elena. And I'm a registered architect in design management and ventures and AI startups and micro SaaS and all that jazz. And would you like to give some introduction to yourself, dear?
I'm an architecture student in Hong Kong now in exchange in Europe. I'm still learning a lot in school, so we'll have different perspectives from as a student and professional.
Perfect. So each episode, we delve into a topic that has to do with AI, architecture, the future, and we are very honest about it. But at the same time, they're very casual conversations. Actually, today we're going to be very honest about this topic today, which is money and rewards. So I feel like this is very often a taboo. People don't really like to talk about how much they're earning or what kind of perks they're getting at work or what their expectations are. And people often struggle with asking for the salary number that they wish for too, as well, I think. But today we're going to talk a bit about the money and rewards of this industry.
So often for architects, people do not tell you how much salary you will get after graduation and how many work is expected. All the things that people tell you is if you're passionate enough, if you're enthusiastic enough, then architecture will be the right path for you and you will get a lot of reward after you get something done and have your own design to have it in practice. So I'm wondering how is the balance between the actual money reward and how much other rewards you will get from architecture. Is that something that is for sure different for everyone, but how is the balance in between?
Yeah, I think people are shy to talk about it. The thing is, I think it's been glorified, the fact that we are, architects, and if we love the work, that we would work until very late to finish something off, and we're almost like martyrs in that sense. It's like we are meant to be artists in pain, like very glorified artists even. But I think we need to avoid becoming hungry artists. That's what I think. Because I think a lot of times the reason why we work very late could be because the profit margin is very thin within a company, and especially if we work in consultation companies. I think, you know, I've seen people who lose their passion, who've lost their passion along the way, exactly because at the end, they realize it's not that worth it. So I'm being very blunt, very honest about, you know, this experience. I've seen people who had lost their passion for architecture or the concept of it. I think I personally, I still have the passion for it, but it's changed so drastically because once I come out to work, once I'm done being a student, what I realized was that it's not what I thought it is. It's just completely different. Maybe this is a good metaphor, or perhaps you can tell me if it's appropriate or not. It's like going into Disneyland, thinking that it is an actual magical realm. And when you go in, you realize everything is a little pretense. It's still good vibes, but it's pretense. And it's a disappointment. For me, I totally imagined the work in architecture to be very different to what it actually is. And to be a bit more specific, I thought there would be a lot more respect for the work. I thought there would be a lot more scope for each person to explore. I thought the market was not as saturated, and I thought there would be more money in it. But the truth is, it's not.
It varies for someone who is doing the dirty work as join whatever the boss is asking them to do versus you are actually having the ownership of your design to lead the way and guide which direction the design actually goes. Does the money reward and also the rewards come differently for those two?
I see what you mean. Yet there are people who are deciding, making decisions. There are people who are managing the designs, and then there are people who are doing the dirty work. And I think there are people who enjoy doing the dirty work, like the dirty work as in enjoy being very hands-on. And I think when we're in school, being very hands-on with something and designing through like a rigorous process using our hands or trial and error and testing is really glorified. And I personally, I love doing that. That's the creative bit. That's the artistic bit. And I think I love that, in architecture school. That doesn't earn you a lot of money when you're out, when you're out working, because I don't think it's about the nature of the work, but it's about the trickle down system. It's it's like a firm would be, it's there's just a hierarchy. And the higher up you go, the less the more distance there is between the actual dirty work and yourself. And as you move up the rank, you get farther and farther away from it. And it's contradictory because if you're a person who actually enjoys
Design.
sorting out a layout, yeah, a design, but if you want to progress in your career, you somehow realize that you have to choose between staying exactly where you are or moving up the ranks and becoming like the manager person. And of course you can say, okay, if I'm the manager, I'll still allocate myself to work on a drawing and be hands-on. You can, but a lot of times the role of the manager is to lead a team. And you cannot properly lead a team if you are so zoomed into a design, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So therefore I would question whether or not that person is doing the role right. And if you even move more upper and further away, you realize that what you're doing is numbers like ROIs, and you're maybe like client facing now or doing marketing. So that's completely different from what we're taught in school, which is actually the basic, not not basic, I mean, but the groundwork.
I believe like a lot of the masters that we learned from textbooks, they have a lot of passion on the design, and very often architects they work until several years before their death, or even like they have some ongoing works until the end of their life. So that makes me think they are very, I wouldn't say glorified, but they are set as the role models that architects can actually, they have the capacity to work a very long career distance. So that's something that I envied a bit, because I feel like for me, myself, I feel if I got retired and like after retirement, I have nothing to do, I couldn't imagine what kind of life that would be. For architects, which is good, is they have a very long career path. And most of the time, if we see some of the masters, they have the passion and they are always enjoying the work. I'm not sure if that is the real case, but at least like from architect students' point of view, like most of the masters, they are really passionate about designing the details, doing something aesthetically beautiful and benefits for the users. So I feel like they are having both of the monetary reward, because of course their designing fee is quite high compared to the others, but also those people, they are having a higher reward on the design they have. Is it the case?
Right. I think you're referring to a very, very small percentile, like the top percentile of architects. Let's say there are 10,000 architects, maybe just one person would be able to get the projects that they like to do, be autonomous with the projects, and have the say about the projects. So much so that they would enjoy to keep doing it even after they retire and even a couple of years before their death, because this would mean that they own the design, they have ownership of the design. But I think right now, not many people can say they have ownership of the full design. They might have small bits, but at the end of the day, it's really teamwork. And yeah, I think with the digitalization, I'm not even talking about AI, but just the digitalization of the design itself going into um BIM as such. And also now every single part of a design is broken down into specific parts where different kind of consultants would come in and pick that part up and sort it out. I feel like the role of the architect is really becoming smaller compared to, let's say, a decade ago, well, maybe a century ago or 5 decades ago. Yeah. And so if we're imagining some old guy with a beard holding a pen until a few days before their death, I'd say, yeah, that might be the case many, many years ago. But even right now, when an architect designs or when an architectural team designs, they design the main concept of it. And then there's a lot of teamwork inside and outside of the company goes in to determine the final output. So if a person is very passionate about the concept design, they're kind of stuck at the very beginning stage of the entire building. And you can say they're fascinated with the details and such. Every detail is sorted out between among many different parties. A facade detail needs to be sorted out, not just drawn by the architect, but also confirmed by the facade engineer, the structure engineer, the supplier, the contractor, the method engineer, maybe. And then let's say that that gets sorted out, then there would be shop drawings and the architect would look at them and then the thing would get built. So if someone is pouring their heart over a detail, I'd say, well, that doesn't do much because a detail is only sorted out when 5 to 6 different parties look at it and confirm that is buildable. So I don't know the meaning of that.
Yeah, so you see like the difference between student and someone is working the profession that our view varies a lot because the architect's life that I imagine is some of the master architect's lifestyle and then how they build the project, how they have the ownership. So for architecture students, I feel like most of us still have some kind of the dream to have the ownership of one project. That is what keep us going and to studying architecture as to build something that you actually own and something that belongs to you. But that's usually not the case in real life. But I feel like the kind of reward, it really depends on person to person. For me, I wouldn't say like money reward is not important. It is very important as some of the other reward that I have. I feel like first of all, I need to have the other kind of reward that after I design something, I like my design, and that kind of rewarding is somehow equivalent to the monetary reward. But of course, like without monetary reward, I wouldn't keep myself alive. Say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very important to have passion for one's work. I forgot if it was Steve Jobs who said a quote related to this. Because we spend so much of our lives working or at work. If we don't love our work, it is really a misery. So I think it is very important to be passionate about one's work, whether it's architecture or not. So I think hitting the balance is very necessary. The balance between the money and, let's say, spiritual reward.
I see you as someone who is quite passionate about work. Do you feel like you have the balance, or if actually the balance doesn't matter that much if you are loving the job enough?
That's a good question. I think it also depends on many different personal factors. Like some people have very wealthy parents who can support them to do whatever they want, and they have a safety net to fall back on. So they can basically not care about the money factor and just go ahead and test different things and do what they want, and the power to them as well. And if you're listening and you're in one of these positions, I'd say go for it. This is your privilege, and absolutely do it. Use it to your advantage. Absolutely go test different things and do that. I think for myself, I think this balance is highly important. I think it's also because I like to not put all my eggs in one basket, which means I'm very passionate about finding out what a startup would look like if I work hard on it. I'm very passionate about learning new things. And at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm not in a desperate situation. Which, what does a desperate situation mean? Is that I'm in such a desperate situation that I will not be able to say no. So this is something that is very important. So I want to be passionate about certain things, but at the same time, be able to say no if I want to be able to say no to work that I really don't want to. And this will only come if I manage to hit that balance. And you may say, okay, but maybe sometimes in order to hit the balance, you have to say yes to things you don't want to do. And I think, yeah, that is sometimes the case as well. That's quite contradictory, but sometimes you have to work on things that you don't like to do in order to fund yourself to do things that you do like to do. And I think I've gone through that phase, especially when I first came out to work. Well, that was when I actually was not really sure what my passion really was. But at least I spent that year or so understanding what really is my passion. And I'm glad I chose that balance, like, which means I was getting an income and at the same time understanding that I need to give myself time and space to find out what my passion was. Because the alternative would be not caring about, actually, let me give you a concrete example. I know I'm being quite ambiguous. There was once upon a time a well-known company had offered me a job in Beijing. They offered me 15K renminbi. So just to let people know, that's around the same salary as a dishwasher, as someone who washes dishes in a restaurant in Hong Kong. So that's around the same salary. And no disrespect to those people, of course, but I'm talking about the gap in the expectation and the reality, right? So this very well-known company who had given me this offer had sculpted this offer as though it is my one chance in my lifetime to join them. And it would be my absolute glory, my honor to do so. And at that time, I was still extremely passionate about design. I wanted to do something amazing. By the way, the name of this company is the main, like the architect, the founder's name. And now thinking about it, was I really going to go into this position and think that the design that I work on would be owned by me when the actual credit would go to the company itself? To me, it sounds like it didn't make sense. Like now, especially when I think about it, it especially didn't make sense. But at that time, I actually had a lot of doubts. I felt like maybe I should go for it. I wonder what I would get from it. And maybe it's something that I should, like, I was still like really young at that time, like beginning of my teens. Maybe that is a sacrifice that I need to take in order to go far. That's what I thought to myself. At the end, I didn't go for it because I asked people around me, like non-architects, and they were like, "You are insane. You are insane to consider it." And then I began to understand that actually outside of architecture, nobody knows what this company is. Because I went to my friends who studying law or studying IT or whatever, and I tell them, "Oh my God, this company XYZ, they just asked me to join them in Beijing. They offered me 15K. What do you think? It's not good, but maybe I should go." And they're like, "What? What company? Okay, is that even legal?" Like they were asking me this kind of stuff, and then I realized, shit, it's like a cult. culture. It's like in architecture. This is unheard of. This, along with all the unpaid internships around the world in very well-known countries, sorry, well-known companies. What?
I see.
You're exploiting the
Your point.
passion.
Yeah. But what I will tell you is I'm not sure like if you are familiar with the salary structure in mainland, but then it differs a lot like compared to Hong Kong. The average salary for architects is quite low, I would say.
Mm.
But like what you said, like 15K is actually quite a high number for
Oh
people to
my God.
graduation. That is the
Man.
difference. But no wonder like someone who grew and lived their whole life in Hong Kong couldn't imagine this. That is the reality. And shall we? I feel like this is a very great moment to talk into the fee structure of
Sure.
architecture. So, I actually don't know how it can differ
Mhm.
that much between different regions and countries. But since you're more familiar with the fee structure in Hong Kong, like how is it? Is it really
Mhm.
good for architects? Is it having a good trend, or what is the fee structure like?
So currently, I think this is quite a global way to do it as well. But if you're a listener and you know other ways, do comment in the chat or in on YouTube, whatever. So it could be by the percentage of a construction cost. Let's say the construction cost is $100, then the architectural fee could be going from $3 to $8 up to 12. I think 15 is extremely unusually high. Normally it's around 5. So it's around that range. It can be very different depending on the nature of the project. So another way that fee structures could work would be by milestones. So concept design, you get a number, you get an amount, then schematic, then detailed development, etc. So at each stage, you get some cash. So that's how it works. There are other ways as well, like lump sum, for example. That's also very popular. So you get lump sum for the entire project, and you just, if you're the consultants, then you would just provide everything that's needed. Um, and very rarely it would be day rates. That's quite rare, or hourly rates. That's usually the way to do it if extra services required outside of the scope of work, outside of the agreement. So that is the current way that architects are being paid. And there are some little bit of doubts, I guess, from my side about it. Because first of all, construction costs, percentage of construction costs. Of course, the client would always prefer to lower the construction costs. And if the architect's pay is tied to the construction costs, it's almost like the architects would not want to lower the construction costs for the clients. And well, it also depends on when do they exactly sign the contract and what kind of procurement they're going with. Are they going with design and build or traditional? So that's different as well. But in general, for me, it doesn't make that much sense because the construction costs may become smaller and lower and lower in the future, especially with modular integrated construction. The whole point of it is to lower the cost. So the lower the construction costs, the less the architects they're getting, unless they update or they upgrade the percentage up to maybe in the future it would become 25%. But what is the incentive for the client to do so? That would be my question. And for milestones, that's all great. And in concept, that sounds fine. But in reality, the architects would have to satisfy the clients. For example, concept design. What does it mean that the design has reached the concept design? Sure, there could be some points about it. There could be some criteria for it. But the clients, especially very difficult ones, might say, nope, we're not happy with it just yet. Please go ahead and do it again and then again and again. And because everyone wants to reach the point where they can get paid, they would do the redundant work or they will do the iterative work. And yeah, I see a lot of that. And a lot of times it's the staff that has to work overtime for that. So that's the current fee structure and just a few points of opinion.
Regarding the construction fee based salary, how would you define the construction fee? Is it actually the actual construction fee, or is the budget for the architects to decide? At which stage is the fee settled?
So from my personal experience, the one that I've done before, they've set the construction fee or construction cost um before before the consultants have been appointed. Any consultants have been appointed. So this is an estimated construction cost. I think it comes from the QS. It comes from the quantitative surveyor. And this is basically worked out in the brief at the very beginning with the clients. So I have to caveat to say each project is very different. I'm just speaking from experience. So they would come up with an estimated construction cost, and this is an educated estimation. And this educated estimation, let's say this X construction cost would be generated from some very basic drawings, maybe from another architect who is only doing the brief for the client. That could be the case. Or the client themselves have an internal team where they will work out what the projected construction cost would be. And then when they ask for architects to bid, they would show that what the architects would get would probably be this X 5% or so.
At least it's not like decided after you design something, after like you obtain the material and all the construction fees.
Depending on the project, a lot of times in the client's brief, they already list out exactly what kind of material to use, exactly which kinds of contractors they are looking at, or they might ask to do the shop drawings. They will already know what kind of like E&M as well. They would have all types of requirements ready already. So the architects actually, they would have this framework to work with a lot of times. Well, again, it depends. Private clients and public clients are quite different.
I feel like since the construction fee is predetermined and the percentage is actually based on how many supply of architects we have in the market. So for say, if we have more architects than the market needs, then the salary will get slower. So if like the payment is slower now, then it's perhaps because of the excessive supply of architects.
That's a good point. There are a lot around. Yeah, it is quite a saturated market. I think the clients will not find it difficult to find architects to work on stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I think with this fee structure, I'm hoping it will change in the future actually with AI, because I think at the moment, the architects are getting quite thin profit margins in their companies. And I think let's talk about what is becoming more valuable in our industry and what is affecting.
Regarding that, like,
sure, go ahead.
Actually valuable to go for a master's degree, which most of the time what you're learning in the master's is quite similar to what you're learning in undergrad. So I have some friends I talked to them, like I saw them working on some of the projects during the master's, and I feel like it's quite similar to what we're doing in the undergrad. It's just you're practicing and practicing more. How do you feel like the value of going for a master's? Is it the aim of going for a master to learn more, or actually is it the purpose of to getting the degree and get a higher payment?
To be honest, I think your friends go into the masters for a couple of reasons. A, because they don't know what else to do, and B, because they want to just finish the masters, get the license, and then figure out what to do. So I think, yeah, so I think they're not even asking this question, to be honest. And I think I'm guilty of that too. I think I was not sure what else to do. I always had my eye set on getting my license. And because I was not exposed to the real world, I was still very happy to keep going because I didn't see the problem yet. I haven't had the reality hit yet. So therefore, I would go for the masters that perhaps, differ that much from bachelors. But if you ask me, I don't think that is the best use of one's youth. What that means is, I think the age 23, 22, 24, it's so valuable that why would you want to do something that you've done already again? I think, especially for certain design studios, they're such scenario based. They're so projecting of far away from reality that I would really wonder how much benefit is the student getting because they're marked against a criteria that is not the same as the outside world. Maybe they're marked against their like how many drawings they pin up on the board or
How detailed?
how many models they make. Yeah, exactly. But in the outside world, I think you would succeed more if you're able to cut costs for the client. I think, yeah, I just think coming back to your main question about should you go for a master's that already resembles a lot your bachelor's, I think that question itself is already saying something. I think the only reason why someone should do that is because they have another goal, which is to endure the 2 years, get a license, and then, maybe they will find their way as such, and they will enjoy the perks of getting an architect's license and becoming an architect. And I personally, I don't regret that. I'm very, very glad I got the license, and it wasn't easy, I would say. It was painful. It's painful and a lot of money to do so. Um, yeah. So I wish it didn't have to. I wish it didn't have to be like that, actually. The process of, I wish that the education can be even more closer, even more helpful. Yeah, for me, for my future. What are your thoughts?
I I actually don't know. I feel like there's still something to learn in the masters, but I'm not sure like whether I will grow faster in the industry or grow faster doing kind of the similar work, but using more of in-depth academic knowledge to do the design. So I will perhaps take a gap year or the year out, as most of us do in Hong Kong, so as to explore a bit more of what kind of things I actually want to do in the future. And then
Sure.
like decide on if I'm going pursuing the license or not.
Yeah, I think you can take even more than 1 year. That's fine. I think anything you do will be a plus, and there's no harm in trying or taking risk at this moment. Yeah. And I guess what you also want to know is what kind of value architects can bring, or I should say, I guess you are wondering what is the most valuable service that architects can bring to the client now. I think it's problem solving.
Problem solving in terms of cutting down a cost, provide something that's feasible.
Yeah, I think in the real life situation on a site, there's so many restrictions, regulations, structural, client's brief, costs. There's just so many. There's just so many that actually making each design decision means that someone is trying to problem solve, find solutions that work. And sometimes it's glamorous. Sorry, sometimes it's not glamorous. Most of the time, it's not glamorous. And a lot of times, it's actually quite humbling or quite straightforward or quite logical. So, actually, the architects that I've worked with and who I respect the most are those who are able to come up with good problem solving solutions that can allow for the thing to actually get built instead of those who suggest very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing designs. But the matter of fact is there is no money to build something like that. So what are you even doing? Why are you even presenting that to us? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something that is not possible within the budget.
Yeah. I've come across architects who have been very proud of their design, and I fully respect their work. I really, really do. But there just isn't money to build it. Like there's just no money to build their design. It's way too over the limits, and they often feel upset about it. I think it's the mentality. Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually as we talked in the previous episodes, the eagerness of architects, the kind of wanting to do something amazing, but it also has to go along with reality. That's how the transition from a student to an architect will take like several months or years to learn.
Yeah, but I think it really depends on people, if you ask me. I think a lot of people are born very artistic. They probably would like to keep working on designs and keep coming up with designs. And I think if they're very, very good, people would actually recognize their designs so much that they would break their wallets for their designs. But I think we just mentioned that this is the 1 percentile out of 10,000 architects that this would happen. And in this economy, like finding that investor. So that's what I mean. Therefore, I think coming back to that question about what is the most valuable thing that architects can bring, yeah, I think it's very likely the problem solving. Yep. The mindset, the thinking. And I really respect that, to be honest. And sometimes it's not spatial at all. Sometimes it's about, their suggestions on how to present something to our clients, or sometimes it's about ways to cut costs, or like the pattern of a facade cladding, for example, how we can use less material. So things like that. It's not exactly spatial design. It's solving problems. A lot of times money problems. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When you're talking about like different types of people, I also have someone in mind that I think she is really good at problem solving. She can actually bring out some part of her design in while doing the problem solving, which means she still has her design concept within the budget, within what's possible for the country to produce. And that is something that I think is very valuable for me to learn. So she's keeping up with her design standards as well as keeping it within the budget. Of course, she will cut down some constraints. She will do some part of the real if the budget or if the factory, the construction workers actually cannot do it. Not possible. But at the same time, I feel like she's really good at doing maximum within a limit.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a very admirable type of designer. That's for sure. That's very valuable. Yeah.
Okay,
So
we will come
that's
to
amazing.
this episode.
Yeah. I think
have
again,
fun.
I don't think so. I think we have a good discussion on what architects like money and rewards in this industry. And I think I have the caveat again to say, I think the above had been my personal views coming from my personal experience, but I think one of the reasons why we want to discuss this in such an honest way is because it's not discussed enough, or it's very often discussed as gossip or rumors or kind of under the table thing. And why not discuss more about it so that if we're not happy about something, we can make a change. So yeah, I really very much enjoyed this episode. So next time, what are we talking about?
Next time, we'll talk about the generalist versus specialist in current age. So, which means should architects become a generalist or specialist? Which is better, which is not? We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. So thank you for who's following us, for who's listening to our podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast.
And like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.